Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now.
And Kurt was very intelligent and interesting, and he wanted to make a label. He was thinking about making a record label. He was really into collecting music, and he would talk about that, how he's like really into bands and stuff, like a collector.
Yes, what is happening? Thank you so much for listening to Hyphenate with me, Randy Randall. Wow, what a show I have today. My guest is Mr. Troy Von Balthazar from the band Chokebore, and also from his own solo career and projects as well, just under Troy Von Balthazar. This is biographical in nature to some degree. I get into it with Troy a little bit, but I probably should set the scene a little bit clearer for the audience. Growing up, I had two brothers. One brother's name was Dave, and he's still with us, and I had another older brother named Sam. He was the oldest, and he passed away. But his best friend, there's more to say about that, but I'm just going to kind of lay out the biography of it. But Sam's best friend was this gentleman named Mike Featherston, and Mike played drums. And my brother Sam played guitar and had played drums as well, but he played guitar. And Mike Featherston, my older brother who had passed away, his friend Mike got a job drumming in a band called Chokebore. And I'm in my probably beginning part of high school. I guess like end of junior high, beginning part of high school, middle of high school, while Mike is drumming in this cool band. And it was by that point, I had been excited to play music, and was sort of, I was lucky enough, I think in some ways, that Mike and his friends sort of adopted me as sort of the social scene's, little brother. In that, because Sam had passed away when I was 12. And so after that, and Sam was really good at taking me around to a lot of concerts and shows and putting up with me, and my older brother Dave as well. But I think Mike sort of stepped in and adopted me, so to speak, as a little brother, and would take me to concerts, and I would get to go see his bands play, his around Los Angeles. And then once he joined this sort of nationally touring band, he was gone a lot. But it was awesome because I was so proud of him and so proud of the whole situation to know somebody who was actually a musician who was touring and stuff. And I had heard the story from Mike that the band had opened up for Nirvana before. And so it was one of those things where it was like, whoa, no way. Like, you knew a band that was touring and putting records out and had played with Nirvana. And I think to me as a kid, or, as a high schooler at the time, it was definitely something that, was up there with goals I would hope to achieve one day, to be able to tour and do things, So I felt like it was like it somehow made it that much more realistic of a goal to play in a band and tour and stuff, just by knowing, somebody who was doing that. And so, so I had a 4-track recording machine that my mom and dad bought me when I was a freshman in high school. And I was, making, recordings for myself of, music that I was making, and then also recording with friends' bands, and just whatever I could do. I was just so obsessed and stoked on playing music. So that was a huge part of, my teenage years. But I remember Mike asked if I could record a demo for his band, and it was like felt like there was so much pressure on me, and I only had like, one or two sort of broken microphones, and didn't really know what I was doing. But I of course just said yes, and I remember they came over to his mom's house, who still lived in the town where I was living, where I grew up, and I recorded this really cool band. And I think at that point too, I was just probably the most annoying little brother person there was. I'd tagged around, and Mike was nice enough to bring me to shows that Chokebore had played, and it was just great. I mean, it was no way of putting it, but I looked up to them so much. You know, I think it was definitely an older brother sort of thing, and just heroes. You know, just like, you guys are so cool, and they were cool, and they are cool, but it was a very, you know, intense, like, I was really nervous, you know, but to record them, but we recorded at least one song. I don't know if we ever made it to another song. I don't remember exactly what happened, and as you'll hear in the interview, you know, Troy asked, like, whatever happened to those recordings, and I assumed I just gave them to the band. I don't think I was going to do any kind of mixing or anything. I must have just gave it to Mike, and I have no idea if he ever got to the band or if he got to it and they lost it, but it definitely makes me want to go digging through the old shoeboxes. I have old skate shoeboxes full of tapes from the 90s I made on this 4-track machine, and see if I could find it, if I could dig up this lost song. So we talk about that in there. We talk about, you know, opening for Nirvana, and in general, you'll probably just get the sense too that, you know, Troy seemed like a very cool guy at the time, and I was not a very cool guy. I was a young kid in high school and was just obsessed with music, and definitely looked up to these guys that I thought were very cool in this band that my older brother's friend was in. So Troy now lives in France, and thank you, Troy, for making the time, and again doing the you know, the late night recording session on your side of the earth in order to accommodate my 9-to-5 dad schedule here on this side of the earth. But yeah, it was really fantastic. You can go find out more about Troy on his website. It's called troyvonbalthazar.net. And any live shows, records, you know, you can stream everything. You can also find Chokebore on all the streamers. And yeah, definitely go check them out and check out Troy's records and go buy stuff. Troy is awesome. I appreciate him making the time to come on. So without further ado, here is my interview with Troy Von Balthazar from Chokebore. Hi, Troy. Welcome to Hyphenate. Thanks so much for taking the time to jump on the mics.
Hi. Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been several decades, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I recognize you.
Oh, okay. Well, I think, yeah, last time you saw me, I was probably 14, no, maybe 15.
Wow.
maybe a little bit. Yeah. But you know how time goes like that. But yeah. I remember you. I was good friends with one of the drummers in Chokebore, Mike Featherston.
Mm-hmm.
I think he went by MIIK on some of the credits, and there was I had just bought a 4-track and was kind of doing 4-track home recordings, and I remember there was a question of, I think Chokebore may need a demo or something, just get a few songs down onto tape to send around for some reason. And I, you know, sheepishly or naively, I was like, I could do it. And Mike, I appreciated it. That was he adopted me as a little brother, I think is the best way to put it. I was an adopted little brother to him. And so he believed in me enough to say, oh yeah, he's got a microphone. I don't know what you guys thought of the experience, but I was enthralled.
Do you still have those recordings?
You know what? I don't know. I still have the machine. So if I did have I'm assuming I gave them to you or to Mike. I'm assuming you guys left with
like the master cassette.
I would think, right?
Yeah.
I hope. I mean, we're probably going back to 1995, maybe 1996.
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
Yeah.
I remember the song also.
You do.
It's a song that we never actually recorded.
Oh my God! So that might have been the
That's
only
why.
recording of it.
Yeah, I think it probably was. Yeah,
Oh
it
God,
was.
I
Yeah.
would say we could ask Mike, but I don't think that would turn up much information at this
Yeah,
point. I wonder.
on some random cassette somewhere.
I remember there was a sense that maybe you were going to send it to a label or something. It was a type of like demo to send, is kind of a, fishing trip for the next record. It sounded like of some
Wow,
sort, but
wow.
I wonder. Oh my gosh! Wow. Well, wow. Okay. Well, that's exciting. I didn't know there was such a mystery around around these recordings.
Yeah,
Um,
wonder.
yeah, so that's how I think I first met you. I think I had probably seen the band play. I probably was very much little brother status. I was
Hmm.
the kid that kind of jumped around at the heels of Mike and his older cohorts, and uh,
Wow,
did
that's
that
cool.
quite a bit.
I didn't even know you were that young back then.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, well, I was born in '81, so I remember it was definitely. I remember Mike saying he was going to audition for the band, and he had asked me to to put some CDs on tape. I think he had some records, but again, I was kind of de facto tech kid for the time, at least with recording and things like that. I found a niche, and so I remember he needed. So I remember listening to, I think the first three albums before the ones he hadn't played on. I think I listened through all of those and put those on a tape for him so that he could play along. Maybe because he had a Walkman and he was going to practice to the songs before he auditioned for the band. And
Wow.
so I knew it was a big deal. Like, oh, and then he went. Then he was in the band and he was on tour. And I remember
Yeah.
at an early age, that made such an impression on me of like, I know somebody who's on a band that's plays on in cities that are not Los Angeles. Like this was up until
Yeah.
that point, I think I had MTV and then bedroom recordings and backyard parties. There was like two
Yeah.
worlds away. I didn't understand how do you go from a bedroom or a backyard barbecue to stages in other cities. And so I think I lived as a kid. It was very inspiring for me to know somebody who toured,
Wow.
and it sort of
And he was a
planted
great
that seed.
drummer, and he toured a lot.
Yeah, right.
He
I
did a
mean,
lot of Europe. I remember.
yeah, I remember him getting a fax. This was those days too, of like the itinerary of some. I remember he had to be
Yeah.
home for wait for the fax. I got to wait for the fax to come in to.
I used to love the faxes on tour. Like every once in a while, you get into a hotel and they'd be like, "You have a fax, Mister," and it was like a letter from a girl, a fax from a girl, and some other. And
Amazing.
it was so cool. I remember I used to keep them and just hold on to those things.
Oh my god.
Faxes, yeah, those are awesome.
Yeah. There was there
Bring
was
those.
one there was one tour. So I was a Star Wars nerd then. Still am now. But but I heard at some point I think Mike had ripped down a Return of the Jedi like poster of in Italy, and he had said it kind of was just floating around the bottom of the tour van for a few months, and getting stepped on and spilled on. But again, I treasured it. I was like, whoa, the international Star Wars poster. It was great. It was kind of like on plaster and everything. But those I've subsequently in the decades that followed spent a lot of time in tour vans traveling around Europe with many things, and so I felt like I was able to kind of put the circle, complete in many ways.
Yeah,
But
awesome.
yeah, that was yeah. So that was I loved and still love Chokebore. I mean, it was one of those bands. It was just I think obviously I saw it through Mike's eyes and I saw what a great opportunity it was for him. Again, kind of
Mm.
going from underground bands to much more higher profile shows and records and recording and making things. And it was one of those. I think your band has always been like a crown jewel or an achievement of like early, like what a band could be, and that experience of touring and writing these songs, and obviously
Mm.
very just I don't know, you know what I mean. In my regard, I like it's one of those things. As the little brother, I was gifted with a few heroes in life, and you and Chokebore are definitely one of those heroes in my
Wow,
pantheon.
oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
Well,
I think.
thanks. That's cool to hear.
Yeah, yeah, well, definitely, yeah, and I count it as a very early influence in all. I've been able to tour and make records, and I think that Chokebore somewhere is always in the kind of the soup and the DNA of like creative
Great.
inspirations for things I've done.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your story. I know cursory details, but where you I know you grew up in Hawaii, but were you born in Hawaii, and what was the situation around that? How does Hawaii fit in the picture?
I was actually born in Chicago, and I moved to Hawaii when I was 4.
Okay.
And so, and from then on, I grew up in Hawaii, and Yeah, I was a teenager when I first started doing music, like 16, 17. No, 17. And there's like a little punk scene in Hawaii, and the musicians and the punkers and the kids and the skaters would all hang out. And I was a skater kid.
Okay.
I would just skate. I was just into skateboarding, so into it. And but we all hung out together in this little scene, and it was really fun. And there was like local shows and at the pavilion or whatever, and different spots. And I had my first beer at a punk rock show there, and we all kind of grew up together. And I used to look at the musician guys, and they just seemed so talented and intelligent and interesting. And I was just getting, not thinking too much, having a good time. But then I kind of gradually sort of floated into music. I think I went to Canada one summer, and my friend Chris Jackson, he had this guitar in his room, and we were just skating around. But like I started just playing it, and over like the month I was there, I just got more and more into it. And by the end of my trip, he just said, "Hey man, just take it with you." So I took his just some crappy guitar and took it back and started playing the punk bands, and then I met the other guys from Chokebore in punk bands in Hawaii, and yeah, just kind of went from there. Then I got kicked out of a lot of bands.
Well, let me ask you too. So, what island were you on? Were you on Oahu?
Oahu.
Okay, and was Honolulu sort of the big city? Was that were you close to that part
Yeah,
of Hawaii, or where were
yeah,
you? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, exactly. It was I wasn't directly in Honolulu, but we were on the west side a little bit
Okay.
outside of Honolulu. When I first moved there, we were living on the North Shore.
Amazing.
Um,
And what brought your
and
parents from Chicago to Hawaii? What was there a business thing, or was it?
um, my mother was in love with this man. My father was already gone
Okay.
many years before, and she was in love with this man, and she went over there to. We went for like a 10-day trip, and we're like, yeah, Hawaii, cool. And it was a 10-day holiday, and at the end of the 10 days, she's like, "You guys want to stay here?" And of course, we're like, "Yeah, we want to stay here." So we literally just stayed, and we had the boxes sent over, and we never went
Wow.
back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. And you have siblings? What?
Cool. Yeah, that's
Uh,
my sister.
this is okay. Older or younger?
Mhm. Younger.
Younger. Oh my God. Okay. Wow. Oh, how fun.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, imagine going on vacation and being like, do you want to just stay on
yeah,
vacation?
yeah, it was great.
How fun. Well, and four. I mean, what an age too. Yeah, the world's still just so wide open.
Yeah, it was so
Incredible.
cool. I mean, my early memories are just like laying in the water, looking at the sand, and just like getting all flopping around in the surf, and
That's great.
looking at the waves. I just would stare at the waves all day, every
Wow.
day,
Oh, that's
watching
incredible.
them move and stuff.
That's incredible. My mom, after her and my dad split, after I graduated high school, so around 99, 2000, and then she moved to Hawaii because we were always going to Hawaii because my dad was a surfer and my brothers were surfers. And so it was always
Wow.
at least once a year or every other year, we'd be somewhere and by a beach, for every vacation. And then so my mom moved and, she lived in, Waianae, kind of out in the country, and she lived
Mm.
there for years and still has a condo there. We've been figuring out
Wow.
what to do with. Um, but yeah, it was gorgeous. So then again, lots of trips and lots of things. I think I remember when Mike was the same age as my older brother, and they were good friends. That's how I kind of became adopted. But Mike became part of the family. But for in '88 when they graduated high school, we all went there, and I remember they skated wallows, and it was a big thing.
Mhm.
They were kind of that same sort of generation of skaters and surfers, and going to Hawaii was a big part of their trip.
Wow. They skated walls in '88. I might have seen them.
That, but right, I know it's so small. I remember, yeah, there was pictures. They went to the Pink Cadillac, I think was a cool
Yep.
club or something. I still have all
Yeah.
my brother's pictures and all of that stuff
Wow.
from that trip. It was very, I think that was a,
Crazy. We used to skate wallows back then. Yeah, that was so much fun.
yeah. Well, that was in the Bones
It was,
Brigade video that kind of put it, I think, on
yeah,
the sort of global map as a spot.
yeah,
But
yeah. It looks semi-mellow in the videos and stuff, but when
oh,
you're there, it is so
well,
the
it's
ground is
rough,
so
porous, and
gnarly.
yeah,
If you fall once, you're just done.
shredded,
You just like shred. Yeah, yeah. Your arms are just like shredded. Yeah, it was
gnarly,
it was crazy,
gnarly. And
but
then
fun.
And then okay, so you grab a guitar, you're playing. What are some of the influences? What were some of the stuff you were listening to music wise? Like what was kind of grooving?
I guess it was probably like hardcore punk rock back then.
Really? Okay.
Um, well,
Like
because that was
yeah.
like the scene I was in, and my sister was into like goth stuff, I guess. But she knew more about music than I did. Like she had a pretty wide vocabulary, and I would hang out with her and her friends. Her friends were really cool, and we'd hear all sorts of new music and stuff at the time. And but I guess it was kind of on that. It was a lot of Cure and like and then into like Virgin Prunes and like all sorts of weird stuff. We got into some weird stuff, Bauhaus and all this stuff, and both sides of that. And but when I first started playing, I think the first song I ever learned on guitar was like a Bad Brain song or something.
Wow. Fast.
I
Oh yeah.
still play it. My friend Mike taught me how to play that, and
Incredible.
so I guess it kind of started there, but that wasn't really in my heart. That music, I had more melodic ideas, and that's why I probably got kicked out of a couple of punk bands, because
You weren't playing straight. You were trying to.
yeah, I wasn't playing straight enough, and I wasn't really following. I wasn't really stuck in that genre.
Hmm.
So, um, like they'd ask me if I wanted to write a song, and I'd come in with something real goofy, and really like, dun, 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 dun. And they'd be like, you're out of here,
You
man."
got to go. We've not. Yeah. Yeah. But little did they know you were ahead of the curve. It was like that scene in Back to the Future. Like, well, your kids are gonna like this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess so. Um,
And then
yeah, and I
James
remember
and
seeing
John, the the brothers.
they were they were in a punk rock band in Hawaii at the time called Mug,
Mm.
Mean Ugly Guys. And they used to have like huge shows. It was so much fun. They just had this really awesome band. And then I eventually like John left to go to art school in California, and so I became the guitar player
Okay,
in Mug, and I was really into it, and that's how I kind of met them, you know.
that's cool.
And we just stayed friends. And then when I got booted out of that band, um, I guess James could kind of tell that I was writing a bunch of stuff, and so I guess one day we just kind of went over to his house and started playing. We started playing, and then John came back, and we just got a drummer, Johnny Kopp. He was a
Yeah,
professional skateboarder,
yeah,
and he started coming over. So we were just practicing in his bedroom, and Johnny would just drum on the bed for like the first year. We did that all the time.
that's amazing. Had he already been playing drums, or was he kind of learning drums as you guys were starting?
He had been in a punk rock band called the Sharks
Okay,
in Hawaii, but just trashy punk rock
yeah,
stuff. Um,
one of the few pro
but
skater turned drummer in the, I think the other one comes to mind, Mario Rubacabla from, you know, he plays rock from the Crypt now and off and
oh yeah,
a bunch of other things. But yeah, San Diego guy.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
incredible.
Um, yeah, so that's how we kind of started out, just hanging out, and I just remember really getting really into it and really interested in writing a bunch of music, um, and I just wanted to do that all the time, all the time. I still do.
Yeah, lifelong obsession. And
Yeah.
so then now, so this is sort of finishing high school in Hawaii, and then at what point does it become Chokebore? How does that sort of form and then bring you to Los Angeles?
What happened was John left. He went to art school. He went back to school at Otis Parsons, is that what it's
Hmm.
called? Yeah,
Yeah,
in LA. And we ended up moving. Me and James ended up moving to San Francisco, and Johnny also. So that we had a three-piece in San Francisco for like a year or two, and it did not go very well. Like nobody wanted to hear that crap. We played a lot of shows in front of nobody, and and then we just kind of like we'd go down to LA for just to go and hang out and yeah, just hang out really. And we ended up just staying. We're like, yeah, let's go down and hang out with John and get him back in the band and do the band in LA. And for me, like I didn't care. I didn't care where I was. I just wanted to play with those guys, and it didn't matter where it was. It could have gone anywhere. And so we drifted down to LA and started playing and 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 playing. That's it.
And then when does the first record come together, or tell me a little bit about Los Angeles also? I mean, I'm definitely just curious. We're talking kind of early '90s, or no, maybe even before that, late '80s.
That would be like, wow, it might have been like 90 or
Okay.
something.
And what was the Los Angeles sort of music scene like there? I mean, this is pre Jabberjaw, kind of.
No, this is Jabberjaw. Jabberjaw
Okay.
was there. Jabberjaw was thriving and doing real well. We were playing there
Yeah.
a bunch, you know. And I mean, you know, we were playing in LA, just kind of playing wherever we could, and doing the circuit or whatever you call it. You know, just playing everywhere. And you know, we ended up playing. I remember playing before Tool one night at some little bar. I can't remember the name of the bar. And you know, there's 50 people there. And I remember staying to watch them, and there's just like, you know, yeah, 50 people. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, the singer, he has something pretty interesting. And that's it. And then the same thing happened. Like I think the same bar. I just don't remember the name of it.
This isn't the Alligator Lounge. This is something different than
No, it
that.
was like in Hollywood somewhere.
Oh, okay.
I don't. It's probably. I don't know if it's still there.
Raji's was a spot that a lot of people played.
Rogers, yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah. This is all before my
Same thing
time
happened with
going
Rage
through.
Against the Machine.
Oh,
You know, we were playing. We played with some band Rage Against the Machine who didn't know them, and same thing. You know, that time I guess there's probably a little more people, but not many. You know, maybe like 60 at that time. But I remember again staying in, watching the band, and going, "Oh yeah, you know, I'm not into their music, but they do play it really well. Like their
yeah.
music, they're good at their music. I wasn't into funk metal or whatever, but or whatever it was at the beginning. But they were good at it.
Hmm.
I remember thinking that, and then of course blew up. You know.
That's always the
Uh,
fun stuff of it all. You're like, okay, all right, I see it. You know, you never. But again, but that's two bands out of 200. That you know what I mean.
yeah,
You're just if you had to throw a dart at at the lineup of the LA Weekly, you know, the back pages of the LA Weekly with well, not that far back, but so you know all the music listings. You know, like who would know? You know, I've done
yeah,
that over the years. You know, with my own bands and things. You know, I remember saving a cutout of a show we played at Spaceland, and it was like the week's lineup or the month's lineup at Spaceland, and it was bands that have gone on to sell at stadiums and these things and that thing. It was like, but again, everybody's just there. That's there's something fun about that sort of moment.
yeah. And so much has to do with luck and also being a good band. You know, and also all the people in the band wanting to stick together and do it all. You know.
Yeah, that's always that's a tough one that I've seen now is that if everybody's rowing in the same direction, if everyone's in the same band or the same boat, or but even the same
Yeah.
band in the sense of like you can look sometimes, especially younger bands starting out, like, well, the singer thinks he's in this band, the drummer thinks he's in that band, the guitar player he
Yeah.
doesn't even want to be there, or whatever. You can kind of pick the thing like that's probably not going to work, but you never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things are so fluid at that time. And you're writing songs all the time, performing all the time. Where does the first record start to take shape?
Well, what happened was I was sending out a bunch of demos back then.
Mhm.
I met this guy who was in this band called Poi Dog Pondering, and I remember like this was in Hawaii, and he was like they were like on a major label for their first album or something. And I was like, and I came up to him after a show. I'm like, man, how did you find the record? How does one find a record company? And he's like, what you do is you just make a ton of demos, send them out to get like a list of every record company that exists, send them out to everybody, and don't worry, everyone's gonna say no. Don't worry about it, it's gonna happen. Then when you get a bunch of no's, you just make a new demo and send out again, and don't worry, everyone's gonna say no, but just don't let it hurt you or anything. Just keep going, and if you keep doing that, you're gonna eventually, and if you do decent music, you're gonna probably find somebody. And so I kind of did that, like I sent out like hundreds of demos, I remember. And I only got two people wrote back. Ian Mackay or McKay, I'm not sure how
Yeah,
to
Mackay.
pronounce it.
Yeah.
Mackay. And Jello Biafra.
Oh my God. Right.
Those two guys actually wrote back. They're like,
Yeah.
Jello
They're
Biafra's
good
like,
people.
hey man, thanks a lot for the demo and stuff. It's not really my kind of music for alternative tentacles,
Hmm.
but good luck and keep in touch and stuff. And I was like, wow, that's awesome, man. And the same thing with Ian Mackay.
He only
He
put out
was
bands from DC. So if you weren't in DC, that was his
yeah,
easy kind of litmus test. He got, yeah. Wow.
exactly, yeah. I think he said something like that. It's like we do like local stuff and we have a scene here and but I was like, oh, that's awesome. Those twos wrote me back. Nobody else did. And then so like probably like the third go round, of like sending out hundreds of stuff of demos. We started getting a little bit of interest. I remember Virgin Records called us and they're like, we want to have a meeting with you. So we're like, oh my God, we just totally made it. And we went to, I remember I was in San Diego, I had to catch a bus back and we like went in the next day to their big office. They sat us down and I remember them saying, okay, we really like your music, but what you got to do is get a really big following in Los Angeles and then we'll start working with you. And we're like,
That's it. That's all we have to do.
yeah,
Get hundreds of fans to throw money at
yeah.
you, and then maybe we'll talk to you. Oh my
If we
God.
could get a huge following here,
We wouldn't be looking for you. Yeah.
yeah, we'd already be doing everything, and
Oh,
it didn't make any sense.
ridiculous.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and then I remember getting a call one day from this dude. I can't remember. It was a big label back then. The same one that Tool and Rage Against the Machine were on. Actually, I
Oh,
can't remember what they're.
Interscope? I wanted to say would probably,
It was something else,
huh.
like their first album. I can't remember.
I don't know.
Zoom or Boom or something like that. Anyway, this dude goes, "Hey, I really like your band," but his voice sounded exactly like my roommate. So I'm like, Mark, dude, I know that's you. Yeah, nice joke. He's like, no, this is Josh from that label. We
Oh,
like your
wow.
band. And I'm like, yeah, come on, man, stop fucking around with me. And I'm like, oh, fuck off, man. And I hung up. And just then, like, Mark just walks in the door, and it was actually the dude from the label. I thought it was my roommate, and I blew it.
What the
And
fuck?
but in the end, it was cool because we ended up. Tom Hazelmouth from Amphetamine Reptile Records ended up getting a hold of our demo and liking it, and he came out and saw us play at a little club in LA, and I guess he liked it, and we started working with him. So we started working with Amphetamine Reptile Records, and really that was a good fit for us because the other record companies would have absolutely at least suggested things musically, and that would have been disturbing. So with AmRep, we just basically he's like, okay, we got a tour for you, and you're going to tour out to Minneapolis and record the first album. We got like 2 days booked. They had a studio in downstairs,
Wow.
and then you can keep going on the tour. And it was with the Australian band Cosmic Psychos. And we're like, yeah, playing shows like outside of LA and like touring. Yeah, okay, cool. So we had a bunch of songs. We had all our songs. So we basically we toured out there. And I remember thinking, and we didn't have a title for the album. And and I'm like, okay, we'll figure out whatever the mileage is. That we'll call it that, But I remember we got there and it was 1984, like that Van Halen. Van Halen. I'm like, yeah, okay, can't do that. So yeah, we went in there and like after all these shows and just like recorded the album and mixed it in 2 days, record and mix, and that was the first album. Like
Wow.
first day, just record the whole album. Second day, mix the whole album, and that's that.
Incredible.
And
Right.
off
Wow.
we went.
What was the studio, or who was engineering? Would you remember any of the kind of the tech side of it?
There's a guy named Tim Mack,
Okay.
and he basically just worked. AmRep was an office, and in the downstairs it was a studio set up,
Incredible.
and it was awesome. It was cool.
Yeah.
We just kind of played all the songs pretty live-ish, and then the album was sort of done. I don't know. It was so fast that it just kind of like did what we did on the stage, and that was the first album.
Incredible. And then you toured with Cosmic Psychos. You continued then 2 days recording and then back on the road.
A couple days, yeah. I think we did like another week or something, and then we just started like touring like mad. Playing with all the AmRep bands. We got to tour with the Cows and Hammerhead and all these really great bands, and by playing with these bands, that for some reason everyone on that label, all their concerts were really good. Like they really focused on giving the most on their concerts. So we quickly saw that and adapted to it, and just kind of learned how to tour and tour hard and play real hard every night and not worry about anything else.
What a huge sort of, gift in so many ways, not only, putting the record out, but also just being kind of brought into a community that was obviously formed around the label and everything, and the touring. And like you say, that kind of style of touring, it just sort of was like a path, or sort of like, here's one direction you could go. But those bands, I mean, there was something almost like a work ethic that I think that comes along with like the reputation of AmRep. Obviously there was like a certain kind of sound and intensity and in terms of where it stands, the post rock or post, what would become early alternative or early college rock sort of stuff. There were definitely like carved a niche for themselves, and I think you fit. But also, I think there was, I always felt Chokebore had more of, again, kind of a more melodic, sort of minor melodic, sort of, the loud, quiet, loud dynamic. But there was something. I think the quiet parts were more. I don't know. I don't want to say richer. Or I don't know what in the sense of where you sat in the pantheon of those bands. I think there was a lot of volume that
musically we were really on the edge. We were on the side of their roster. We were really melodic and like you said, compared to everybody else. And so we felt
but
we were like the softie.
But you found yourself a welcome place within those fans and that community, or how did that sort of approach? I mean, obviously you're bringing something new to the table. It wasn't just another Helmet or another Cows or this sort of thing.
No, we had to dig and chisel out every single fan. I mean, no, nobody gave us any fans or anything. I mean, we saw them. We learned how to tour with those bands because they just tour so hard. But besides that, we just had to get out there and get every single fan by hand.
Yeah.
And play hundreds of shows with nobody there and. We were touring America. I remember we get $100. That was our fee for the band.
Oh, yeah. And this is sleeping on floors. We're like, cool. Eating nothing and just
Yeah. But we were in our 20s and we're just like, this
coffee
is
and cigarettes and ambition sort of keeps and low octane fuel keeps you going.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I just remember. We would just drive out of LA, leaving all our friends and normal life, and behind, and we just go out on this adventure. We didn't know who we were going to meet, what was going to happen, but we knew it was going to be awesome and exciting, and there'd be a lot of music and a lot of memories, and it was just felt so free and detached. And we'd come back and then people. I remember we'd come back and then people were kind of dating more seriously. And then we go out and tour, and then people are we'd come back and everyone's kind of engaged.
Oh,
we'd come back and everyone was married. And then we'd go out and we come back, everyone had their first kid. And we're just out there in this free space,
Yeah, it's almost like the astronaut paradox. You leave for what feels like just 10 minutes and you come back and 10 years have gone by.
Yeah. It was great. I loved it. I mean, personally, for my personality, it fit.
It was a bit of a pirate sort of life, because a nomadic life, and Yeah.
full of adventure and music.
And were you able to write on the road? Just as a creative person, did you find you had time on sound checks or in the downtime between shows to write? Or I mean, that's the conundrum, I think, of most of active bands in that situation is like, when do you write? You have forever to write your first record and 2 weeks to write your next one.
I could write lyrics, a lot
Okay.
of words. I can write words on tour, but I didn't really have the capacity to write too many songs probably on tour. I wrote parts of stuff. I'm sure I was always working on something, but I remember really I could do words on tour because we're having these incredible experiences and these new places, and it was just inspiring. Um, but I do remember. I think I remember the bulk of it would come when we get home and we'd be resting and stuff, and then you sit down
Batteries
with
are
your guitar again.
charged. You have something more
Yeah,
to bring in. And then the
yeah.
second record, is it the same experience, or what happens? What happens there?
Same deal. Well, we recorded that one in Los Angeles, and it was cool. We'd been touring a bunch, and we'd had a lot of fun times, and we recorded the second one. Don't remember the name of the studio, but I remember the guy's name was Biff, and he's a nice guy. And we would just eat. I remember we just ate a lot of burritos, and we'd record in this dude's loft, like downtown LA.
Wow.
Pretty lo-fi stuff. It's just like an empty room, and we did the whole album there.
And that's
Kind of went for it.
anything near water. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Incredible.
So
So a
we've
little
been
bit more
touring a
time.
bunch.
It wasn't 2 days. You had more time to.
No, yeah, it was more time.
Yeah.
I think it was probably like a week for tracking and 4 days for mixing or something like that. Probably something like that. But from that session, I do remember one day I got gas in my car and I was like driving out there. I remember I had my sunglasses on, and like the sun just like came through the car window like perfectly, and I was just thinking, wow, this is just exactly what I want to do with my life. I had one of those moments, like an epiphany, as this is just perfect. I'm like right where I want to be. I'm just totally like creating what I want, and some people are going to hear it, and we're going to like go on tour, and like this is exactly where I want to be. I just remember that split second. That's my number from that time.
It's a rare experience. I mean, it's really
Yeah,
something magical to have lived a life and go, you know what? There was a moment where everything lined up just right.
yeah,
And you can kind of
yeah,
extrapolate from that, as things go and life hands you a bag of lemons, Sometimes you get hit with
yeah,
a bag of lemons in the nuts every once in a while too. But for sometimes
yeah,
it goes just right.
yeah.
That's incredible. And then again, I would imagine at that point, then is this now the venues are growing? It goes from small bars to bigger bars, or what was that sort of progression like? I
Uh,
mean, you're now
no,
no okay, but you had also done
no,
the Nirvana opening slot
that's
before
right.
that,
Yeah,
right? Between the first record and second record.
I think so. Yeah, I
What
think
was
so.
that experience like? I mean, that's again talk in hindsight, or from other people's outside perspective. I'm sure there was a lot of attention around there.
Um, that was cool. I guess like on the tour for the first album, we'd become friends with the nanny for his baby,
Callie.
and we ended up like Callie. Yeah, yeah,
I know Callie. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And-
That's incredible.
oh, okay, cool.
He just had
Wow,
his own baby. He's now a dad.
wow,
Yeah.
crazy.
Okay. So
Whoa,
you'd become friends with him, and he was very
cool.
much part of that Jabberjaw scene and that sort of world of
Yeah, he's
stuff.
part of
Yeah.
Jabberjaw scene, and James, the bass player on Chokebore, was
Mm.
working at Jabberjaw. He was like best friends with the owner, and so he was really in that scene. And then like one day we were up on tour in Seattle, and we needed a place to stay, and somehow we ended up at Kurt's house, and we slept over. He wasn't there; they were on tour or whatever.
Mm.
But so we slept there, and then like the next time we came back, we went there again and slept there again. So we kind of kept crashing at Kurt's house, and he would always. I guess he was cool with it, and I remember going to the bathroom, and there was that MTV award, like this gold award with that guy holding the flag and shit. and it was like in a bathroom holding the door. Remember
Oh,
that? The bathroom door, that's where they kept it, on the inside of the bathroom door.
that's great.
And I was like, wow, okay, cool, man. That, that's cool. This guy's pretty cool. And then one day they just kind of called us and said, hey, do you want to do some shows? Oh, I remember seeing Chris, the bass player, at one of our shows in Seattle, kind of just in the back, and he ran off. We're like, okay. And then they somehow contacted us and asked, and they're like, do you want to play? And we're like, yes.
That's not a bad idea, right?
Yeah.
That's
And
hilarious.
it turned out that Kurt had really been into our first album. We didn't really know that, but he listened to it a lot and really liked it. And so he invited us. It was really Kurt, I think, that was really into it. And I remember we played at Raji's the night before. So we played at Raji's, and I remember my mom was there and probably like 30 other people, you know. I was really uncomfortable. My mom was in the front, and I was just like, oh, you know, I'm
Yeah.
like rocking and
Yeah.
just nuts. My mom's like, I've never seen you act like that, but okay. You know,
That's what I do, Mom. Come on, get off my back. I'm a singer. I'm a rock star, Mom.
yeah. But then the next night we went down to San Diego and played in like the San Diego Sports Arena or something like
Oh
that,
my
right?
God. Wow.
And we had never
Night
even,
and
I never
day.
even,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd never even been in a place like that, you know? And it was just freaky. It was just freaky. And I remember the buffet backstage before the show. It's this huge long table filled with food.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God.
Well, because
Whoa.
this isn't all necessarily for the band. There's 100 people that work in a crew.
Yeah.
To put a show on like that, you need, 40
Yeah.
guys to drive trucks and vans and build the thing. And so you got to
Giant
feed everybody.
trucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It was stadiums
Yeah.
tour, I guess.
Yeah.
It was the San Diego Sports Arena. That's what it was.
Wild.
Wow. It
And
was
so that's
intense.
catering for the entire crew backstage, hundreds of people that do all the stuff. And yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Wow. Food. Oh my God. And then we had to play. And I remember the whole time I was just thinking, just don't poop my pants. Don't poop my pants. Don't poop. The whole time, man. The whole time that's all I was thinking the first show. I was looking at my shoes going, no. I think I was wearing shorts.
Oh
And
no.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, do not. But I somehow got through it. It was terrifying.
I could
And
imagine.
I think most of those shows, I just like looked at my feet. I remember kind of like gazing out and like kind of going, whoa, there's a lot of fucking people there. Well, then like looking back down at my shoes and just like, it was too freaky.
Yeah, right. It has nothing to do with
But
music. At that point, it's some type of like public humiliation ritual or something.
well,
Opening those kinds. I mean, it's an honor, but again, but what you remember from the experience isn't necessarily the glitz and the glamour and the fame and the love and the adoration. It's trying to conjure something that you do every night in small spaces into a something the size of a small state or something. So,
yeah, it was real different. It was very different, and you couldn't relate to. I couldn't relate to it.
There's
Couldn't
nothing.
understand it. I knew I'd probably process it later, but at the moment I was like, I can't process this, so I'm just going to like play the songs and do the best we can and kind of like get through it.
You see your shoes in the back of a few large football players who are being paid to guard the stage.
Yeah.
The view from that side of things as the opening band isn't. Yeah, it's hard to process.
But I remember we played one show up in Washington somewhere, and it was a bit smaller venue. It was still huge, but it was you could at least like you could see the back, with your eyes. And I remember that was cool because there was a bunch of people, thousands, but I think they were all standing, so they weren't like seated like in an arena and stuff. So they're kind of like more like a show,
Yeah.
Big show. I remember one time the best moment of the tour. We played a song, and I turned around to my amp to like touch a knob or whatever, and I heard the crowd go wow, and I remember feeling like the wind and like the heat from the crowd go whoosh, and like rush across the stage, and I remember just all my hair just like stood up. I was like, whoa, that was awesome, and I was turning my amp going, whoa, that was fucking cool. I could feel that the people, it was cool.
Wild.
A lot of people. And it was real fun and really intense. We played like on New Year's Eve. We played in Oakland Arena or something like that. stadium thing, and all these famous. Gene Simmons was backstage and all this stuff, and it was
I had heard,
crazy.
yeah,
It was wacky, right?
that's wild. I had heard he
Yeah.
was, yeah, I think through the Melvins or something, there was some kind of thing. I think Gene Simmons was trying to figure out what this grunge thing was and where he could make money off of
Mm,
it.
right.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
was an angle to
It was
play.
all a bunch of famous people and stuff.
Wild.
And but you know what? The band was really cool. They were really cool, really mellow guys, really cool, and really down to earth, which was surprising because of so much. There was so much around them,
Hmm.
and they were really, really mellow and cool the whole time. And Kurt was very intelligent and interesting, and he wanted to make a label. He was thinking about making a record label. He was really into collecting music, and he would talk about that, how he's like really into bands and stuff, like a collector.
Sure.
That's not my personality. I'm just not a collector, but he was, and he would talk about it. Um, and I was always hoping that we'd get on that label, and
Right. Yeah.
maybe we could. Um, yeah.
What the road, yeah, with the alternate universe of what that life would have been. Um,
Mm.
that's wild. Wow. But what is and this is still just off of one record. So this goes from mailing demos to then,
Yeah.
one record and then just touring your asses off, right? Just living out of a backpack for a few years, or at least a year, and then
Yeah.
to some large arenas. And then from that, were you then courted by larger law firms seeking to represent you in some kind of way, or what? I mean, I imagine there was a lot of hype and a lot of everything that Nirvana touched seemed to get sucked up into some kind of tornado, or did you have your feet sort of planted? Was
It
there a
didn't
wildness around that?
It didn't feel like it. It felt like we were kind of like down here, and then we just went to this huge area, and then we just kind of like dropped back to where we were. We just kind of like the concert right after the Nirvana tour was middle of nowhere in front of like 25 people again or something. I mean, it was kind of like, especially for AmRep, because AmRep didn't really want to capitalize on it or make it a big deal, and that really wasn't. They're kind of low key, and and we didn't really want to be in that world anyway, so we kind of just went right back to touring, just like normally.
Okay.
We did eventually. I mean, I guess the word kind of got around and stuff, and we did eventually get a management company in Los Angeles and stuff, and I'm sure that probably had something to do with it. Um,
It seemed
but
like, yeah, there was enough attention on things at that point that, yeah, just it would be hard to not. It seemed like everybody was just anything related to Nirvana. There was a team of people sent out, dispatched. What can be done? How can we do this?
right,
Um, but oftentimes
but
it wasn't necessarily beneficial to the band itself or to their trajectory. It's
right.
yeah.
Well, we worked with that management company, and it was a big one in Los Angeles. They had the Beastie Boys and just like huge stuff. And I remember like being on tour, and they just had weird ideas. They're like, you should do covers. You should do like Men at Work covers, and we'll release an album like that as
Oh
your first
Lord.
thing. And I was like, we don't want to do that. That's a terrible idea. I don't want to. I don't want to do that. And then I remember our manager's like, "Hey, we got this guy. Call this dude." But at the time I was touring, my grandmother had passed away, so I had her ashes in a bowling ball bag, and I decided to take her on tour, so you could see the
Sure.
country. So I had my grandma's ashes on this tour. We're gonna be all over the USA, and at one point, our manager's like, "Hey, call this dude and tell him that you have your grandma's ashes on the road with you." And so I called the dude in the middle of nowhere on some payphone, and I'm like, "Hey, Greg, or whatever his name was, I got my grandma's ashes with me," and it was Marlyn Manson, I guess, right? And I'm like, "Hey, my name's Troy, and I'm supposed to call you because our manager said, and I just want to let you know that I'm touring with my grandma's ashes." He's like, "What? What are you talking about, dude?" I'm like,
You-
"I don't really know. I don't really know what I'm talking about or why I'm calling you or anything."
oh
He's like,
Lord.
"Okay, cool. Well, nice to talk to you." I'm like, "Yeah, nice to talk to you," and hung up. It was just real. She just had really weird ideas. You know, just a different thing. And then but then we'd also started touring in Europe. We went over there on the first album and loved it. And so we kind of like we really wanted to tour in Europe because that was really interesting, more interesting at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like mind blowing. And so we ended up recording the third album. Oh, I'm sorry, wait. I'm all confused chronologically here. No, the first and the second album, well, yeah, that was pretty much pretty America. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't have the management until the third album.
Oh, okay. This is Black.
Yeah, that was no Taste for Bitters.
Oh, Taste for Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay. Yep.
Um, so yeah, I think basically after Nirvana, we just kind of kept touring and making the second album, and I don't think anything really came of it directly. But we didn't care. We were happy on AmRep, and we just wanted to play. We just wanted to play and tour and write good music.
It's incredible. Yeah. And so then third record made in Europe, and you sort of found a home. There was an audience that was maybe more receptive than whatever post Nirvana American, rock landscape was becoming.
Well, things were picking up in the States, but when we went to Europe, it was just so interesting. It was so exciting on a personal level. It was just so cool to be playing in Poland in some weird town where they like never seen anyone from the States, and like it was cool, man. It was real cool. So, and it kind of just blew our mind every day, and we decided that we just liked it, liked being out there, and wanted to do it more. And so we ended up recording the third album in France at a beautiful studio called Black Box Studio in France. Cool. And we started touring a bunch in Europe.
Wow. Yeah. And then okay, and then I guess we're I don't want to keep you too long, but I know so from there, then another record, more touring, and then different drummers. You sort of had a bit of a Spinal Tap drummer seat for a few runs.
Yeah. Basically, after the second album, we switched drummers. Mm-hmm. And we had a guy named Christian Madrigal, who was a great drummer. And then he eventually quit. And that's when we worked with Mike. Mm-hmm. And then Mike got, it wasn't right for him, and he stopped. And then Christian came back, and we worked with him. Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, that was right. It's in '99. I moved into that small one-bedroom house that Mike was renting off Melrose in the Brea.
Upstairs?
Yeah, the upstairs one. And and I think James was there on the couch for some days. I have a funny personal story. My prom night, I graduated high school in '99, so my senior prom was somewhere in LA, and we went out to dinner afterwards somewhere in Hollywood. My date and I was 18, and my car broke down in Hollywood. I had this really kind of piece of crap car that didn't run, and so my car broke down right off of like Sunset and Fairfax or something. And so I was able to get it towed to Mike's house. I'd called Mike, I'd called the house phone from the payphone, and I think James answered, and it's like, oh yeah, Mike's not here. And so I was like, okay, well, I know I'd already been there. And so I was like, okay, well, is that cool if we come and crash? And James was like, I don't live here. I don't know. And so my date and I on prom night went and stayed at that house. And then my mom came and picked us up in the morning. We got the car towed and and then my dad came back out and we fixed the car in the morning. But it was so funny. I remember just, going there and like, hey, James, I think he was kind of crashed out on the couch. Like, I don't know what's going on. And then fast forward a few months, then Mike was like, well, I'm going to be on the road all the time. So I was going to start college in downtown LA. I went to USC, and so he's like, yeah, just come live here. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's cool. Just come stay at my place. Like you can pay most of the rent, and then I'll just crash. I'll be the guy on the couch in between tours. I'm like, sounds great. And then somewhere between, us agreeing to that in April, and then come June, I think then he was out of the band, or he was no longer going on tour. So he kind of was like, you might need somewhere else to stay or something. I'm like, I don't have anywhere else. I'm starting school in like a month or something. I'm 18. I don't know. I've never lived on my own. You said I could stay here. And so I think there was a miscommunication or something that just was par for the course
Um,
at that age. But I was also like, I'm a kid.
yeah.
I don't know. You said I could stay here. I don't know where else to stay. And so he's like, fine, fuck it. Like, just stay here. So we ended up being more roommates than I was going to watch his place, kind of sublet while he was bouncing around.
Uh,
And, yeah, it was a weird one. And we're like, what happened to the band?
yeah.
And I never understood what the process was or what it was all about. But, yeah,
I think it was basically it was such a horribly tiring lifestyle, you know,
yeah,
and, and very it can be very vacant unless you and unless you enjoy that void, it really wears you down, you know.
yeah. Oh yeah. I've been able to
But
experience some of the low lows of,
yeah,
truck stops and shitty motels that all over the
right,
world. It all
right,
blends together, and you start to go. And like you said, it's hard to have a friends or let alone a relationship or anything that's kind of substance. And you're like it's
yeah,
becomes. I always think of it as like that European vacation. Like, look, kids, Big Ben. Look, kids, Eiffel Tower. Look, I'm in the
yeah,
most romantic place in the world with these chumps, these guys who we
yeah,
argue over who drank the last beer or who stepped on whose
yeah,
shoes the night before, and now we're just gonna play have a pissing match for the next 2 weeks until we figure that out, and we get to go travel around, travel around, with in your case you had literal brothers, which I'm sure is a blessing and a curse at all times, but it definitely feels being in a band and living that close quarters. It's a marriage, it's a friendship, it's a brotherhood, it's all the things good and
yeah,
bad that comes with that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true.
um yeah, so I don't want to rush through anything, but I know there's another record, and then and Vern Rumsey from Unwound and Punk and My
Yeah,
Vitamins label comes into your world from AmRep to Punk and My Vitamins.
hmm.
How was that working with Vern, and how did you find that relationship and that record?
Vern was cool. We'd go up when I think he lived in Olympia, didn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Um, yeah, and we go to his house and crash out there and like spend some days. And he had like a little recording set up downstairs, and I remember we recorded a Beatles song. He's like, I want you to record a Beatles song for some project, and we recorded Her Majesty
Hmm.
like in the middle of the night, and it was real fun, and he was just a cool guy. And then we started touring with them. We toured a bunch with them
Oh,
with Unwind
I could see
at
that
the
being a good
time.
fit. Yeah,
Yeah, it was cool.
yeah.
And then he had Punk in My Vitamins, and he eventually released, I think it was Black in the States on Punk in My Vitamins.
Amazing.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah, yeah. I'd only met him a handful of times, and I was always kind of a shy kid or a fan. So like, hey, how you doing? He seemed
Yeah.
yeah, little checked out whenever I would talk to him. So I was like, okay.
Oh, really? He
But
was
again,
real
it's
mellow
a
and real
kid.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then where do things kind of wind down in band form and pick up solo form, and you find yourself moving? How does that happen?
Well, we like I said, we'd been touring so much in Europe, and we just loved it. And then it started to be like after tours, we all kind of had girlfriends in Europe, and
Hmm.
we'd stay there after for a month, and while other people went back, and kind of we just ended up kind of staying over more. And eventually, John moved with his then I think girlfriend, or maybe they were already married. They just like moved to Berlin, and so we're like, okay, I guess we're gonna go to Europe and like live there now. Um, and so we kind of all just going over to Europe, and it kind of winded down because we've just been playing for so long and living in that van, this van and that van for so many years. And I felt like, I don't know, I think I felt like I needed a change. I felt like I was being treated like a child, because it's like, okay, I want to go do something. Well, we're leaving at 7, so I can't really go and do anything by myself. I'm always like glued to this group, and we get free food and free drinks or whatever. But I wanted to make my own sandwich, and not have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
So it was all really about came down to sandwiches, and I got burnt out. And
That's
also for me,
that's
I
the best
personally, I
life.
was hearing a lot of acoustic music in my head, and it didn't really fit with Chokebore, and I started to be not happy on the tours and stuff. I started to get real depressed on the tours, even though our crowd was growing and growing and growing, especially in Europe. There was a lot of people at shows, and things were going real well. But it didn't change the way it didn't make me more happy, or it didn't make me feel better at all.
Mm.
It was actually a good lesson. Um, um, and I eventually just I just burnt out. I just burnt out,
Yeah.
and I jumped out of the band.
And you are relocated to permanently to France around that time
At
as
that
well, or?
at that time, I mean, we were just bouncing back and forth all the time. I was living half the year in LA, and some of it like in Corsica
Mm.
with my then girlfriend, but I can't remember. I mean, I was all over the place. Um, but I heard different music, and I still had a lot of music in me, and I wanted to. Guess I kind of wanted to like try to do music differently. So I went out and got an office job in LA for a while. I remember just like to save up enough money to buy a computer and have my friend make a website for me for $300. That was the thing. Is the computer was like I can't remember. It was like the first Apple, like the big one,
Oh
the blue
yeah.
one, and then $300 to make the website. And I was like, if I could just get that much, I quit my job. So I did that. I worked at an office, and then I got that much, and I quit the job, and booked a tour in across Europe just solo. And then that was my big dream, to just tour the world, just carrying a guitar and a rolling bag, and just play, and make music, and write and write and write and write. And I did that for a bunch of years,
Wow.
and I'm still kind of
Incredible.
doing it.
That's amazing. I remember we played a festival with Grant Hart from Husker Du, and he had an alligator suitcase and a guitar on his back, and some purple shoes, some purple kind of like, or maybe the shoes were purple alligator shoes, but just very, very unique, very Grant Hart. And uh and yeah, and he would take trains and just had a guitar, and just go where he went. And then we got to be friends with him. And when he came to LA, he's like, I need a twin reverb. Like, I'm just gonna show up and be there. And he ended up staying with one of our friends. And I was like, yeah, borrow it. It was incredible. I don't know if you were ever a Who's Purdue fan, but Grant was,
Yeah,
yeah, it was really special in that kind of way, and just sort of seemed to have that sort of the troubadour. Like, I have the songs, I have the tools. Just point me in the direction, and I'll go.
yeah. Hmm.
That's great.
Yeah, that was like the big dream for me,
Hmm.
and and I lived it. I lived it. But after a while, even that dream, once you live a dream long enough, you want a different dream. I guess.
Hmm. Yeah,
So it's
reality
different.
starts to creep into these dreams. You sort of need to recalibrate it and sort of find what's the next dream. That's the best part of, I
Yeah,
think, about the creative pursuit, is it's in the sense that you set these goals, these lofty, sort of unrealistic goals, but then break it down, make it an achievable thing, and then and then you go, okay, that satisfies that itch in a lot of those kind of ways, or within, whether it's writing a song or a particular place or an experience that you have in mind. If you're lucky enough to be able to be an alchemist and put the ingredients together to achieve that thing, and like, okay, now what's next? It's not necessarily a scaffold or a pyramid. They're like, okay, well, I'm going to get to the top of it. It's like, no, it's a series, it's a linear motion that
yeah,
you can move through life and experience things, and move from one experience to the next. It doesn't all have to be this type of ascension, which I think so much is built around in a sort of corporate capitalist, sort of careerist sort of way. Like, and then the biggest thing happened, and then the bigger thing happened, and then it got even bigger. I saw this terrible interview with The Rock where it was like, you've done all this stuff, you're The Rock, like, what, you've conquered everything, now what do you do? He's like, I'm gonna build another mountain and then conquer that mountain. It's like, oh god, when does this end? You know what I mean? You realize, like, oh, there's no there's no center to this massive ego swirl. It's just
yeah.
gonna go and on till, and you understand that type of celebrity stuff becomes its own curse in that regard.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, through those years, I had bumped up against a bunch of famous people, and they weren't. I noticed that they weren't any happier than me, and a lot of times they were they were more unhappy and less satisfied because they had to work with a bunch of people that they didn't l- want to work with, and
Yeah.
even in the creative realm, they had to listen to a bunch of idiots tell them stuff about their art. And so I was always kind of happy that I kind of stayed back away from that, because it allowed me to do what I want to do with my life, the way that I want to do it, and with my art, and not let anybody get their grubby hands in there, not let anyone mix that area up, and touch that area.
Yeah, like
Um,
making
and that gives you
compromises with
satisfaction.
in things that didn't have, there was no place for a compromise to be made. So why would you,
Yeah.
change it or dilute it or sully it in some way?
Yeah, I mean, you can always look for that and find those people if you want to. You can court those kind of people, but I wasn't interested in that. I really just wanted to, and I still just want to write something better, and don't want someone at a record label telling me what, give me any advice on that,
Yeah.
or a business person, Um,
I think it really is a
yeah.
blessing to have a passion and to know what you want or to know what you like. I've found in my travels in life and creative experiences that not everybody does. Not everybody knows what they want to do or what they like to do.
Mm,
And
mm,
having clarity of mind to understand your abilities and your goals in a creative sense, you know what I mean? And do that and to achieve that and go, okay, no, I want to write songs like this and I'm doing that. That's a
mm,
real, like, I know blessing is the right word, but a real, you know what I mean? A real beneficial position to be in as a creative, because then you can go, I can do this. My
yeah,
aspirations and my skill level are lined up again in that kind of moment. Like this makes sense for me. I don't want to have to
yeah,
justify that to everybody, to the rest of the world, but I like doing this and this is what I do. And that's,
yeah,
I always tell my wife, I'm like, I feel sometimes like we won I wanted the kids, I wanted the house, that was part of my thing, but I also wanted to be creative in some way, shape, or form. And like, you know what I mean? And the money sign or the dollar amount never really made sense, as long as those the ability to have the experiences, that you want in life, whatever that is,
yeah,
traveling, writing, being creative, is like those are small little
yeah.
moments. It was the amount of money that it would take to do that is irrelevant, as long as you're able to, have those experiences.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely. I mean, life isn't just trying to get more money.
well, or for some people it can be, you know what I mean? But then,
Some people
but again,
can,
we all end up in the same place. And what are you going to do with it? It's in the Bible, for God's sake, what are you going
but I think less people than we think
to,
really actually want it. I think that a lot of people think they want it, and waste a lot of time believing that's the ultimate goal or something.
yeah.
Some people love it, and that's their dream, and that's real, and I respect that. But a lot of people waste a lot of years, and I don't want to waste my years.
No, no. Yeah. We all know. Yeah. That's the one thing you do have, right? Is time as a resource, and how you spend it
Yeah,
is priceless. That's really something
yeah.
you get to do. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with me. Oh, I did want to ask you before we sign off. Do you remember Cara Lane? Was she somebody that was in your orbit? She had done artwork, I think. Maybe she was friends with John, somebody from back in the
Oh,
day. I ended up working with her at Amoeba Records. She
okay.
was kind of the live event coordinator at Amoeba Records, and I was doing some research. This was a few years back, and I saw that she had posted some artwork she had done. Maybe it was for flyers or for something. She was somebody.
Kara,
Cara.
is
Yeah.
she? Oh, God, I totally recognize the name, but
Okay.
I think it was John's friend. Yeah, I
Yeah. Okay. Probably
think
a
she was
million
John's
years
friend.
ago, but it was
Yeah, yeah.
we had a fun I'd worked at Amoeba Records right out of college, and got to know her, and then
Okay.
over the years we'd played there, and and I got to hang out with her, and at some point a Chokebore came up in the conversation. I was like, what? Again, I'm a big Chokebore cheerleader, so I was like, I know them, I know. I was the kid. So
Wow,
it was fun. We reminisced fondly about you and
that's
John and
cool.
James and the group in those days. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, where do people keep in touch with you and find out more about what you're doing? I know you're playing solo. I know there's a new Chokebore Instagram page. I know there's a lot of things that are happening. How do you want people to follow you?
Uh, eh,
Or
I
how do
don't
they find out
know.
when are you playing? How do you post it? Or what do we?
Well, I've been making albums since Chokebore. I've done. I just finished mastering my seventh solo album,
Oh my
Troy
God!
Von Balthazar.
I
Yeah,
apologize for my naivete or for my
no worries.
yeah
It's cool.
yeah.
And I finished just I'm just finishing the seventh one. That's going to be out in March of 2025, and then I already recorded the eighth, and so now I'm trying to write for the ninth. So I'm ahead of the game, but happily just writing music every day,
Oh, it's
and
incredible.
and I have a little studio at home here, and just like thinking about music every day and stuff, you know.
And do you
And,
self release? Is it all up on
no, no,
streaming and it's okay?
I have a record company out in France
Incredible.
called Vicious Circle Records,
Great.
who remind me a lot of AmRep back in the day. Like they just like they don't get in my music. They're just whatever I send them. They're cool. They release it. Same kind of ethics and good people and called Vicious Circle Records. And so yeah, I have a record company out in France, and I'm gonna be playing in the UK and all over the place. Yeah,
Oh,
I
it's
do a bunch
amazing.
of solo stuff, all sorts of random stuff. Yeah. And
Great.
I'm mixing other bands and producing music and stuff like that. Love the studio. Love working in the studio. And yeah, just keeping busy, man. I'm still doing it. And but the thing that I want to say is that before when the moment that you die, you're gonna think back and wonder if you did the right thing in life. And so it's important to do what you actually want to do with your time. That's all I can say. Because I had a couple times this last year where I was close. I got kind of close to that.
Oh God.
And I felt okay. Like I was like, wait a minute, I actually did what I wanted to do with my life, and everything made sense and it was okay. It was really good. I felt good. I was like, I did my music. I did it for years and years and years, and I did exactly the music I wanted to, and that was important. So, like, if anybody's listening to this, that's important to do what you want to with your life.
Wow. That's
As much
incredible.
as you can. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. To
makes you feel
find
good.
that sort of peace of mind and that sort of peace in life with, yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah,
Wow. Well,
nice,
Troy, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on here. It's been a
nice to
pleasure.
talk
It's
to
been
you.
a pleasure reconnecting and talking with you. And thank you so much for everything, for all the music, for all the live shows, for all of the inspiration that I've taken over the years. I wanted to say thank you.
Thanks for the memories.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah,
Awesome.
man, good to talk to you.
Oh man, what a great interview, Troy. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share so many great stories. It was really great to connect with you. I think we probably had not spoken in decades, but it was really nice getting to hear the whole story and to hear everything you've been up to post Chokebore. If you want to find out more, which I'm sure you do, you can go to his website, troyvonbalthazar.net. That's TroyVonBalthazar.net. Troy Von Balthazar, all lowercase, all one word. And you can also follow him and find more music on his Bandcamp. Same thing. His name, troyvonbalthazar.bandcamp.com, as well as Instagram. Go to the Instagram. It's his name, same there as the other places, Troy Von Balthazar. If you could do a quick Google search, Troy Von Balthazar, you will find all of those links there, and also in the show description, right there below. I typed it up. I put links in it. You just click on it. You're on your phone, you're reading this, you're listening to this, go down there, just click on those. You can buy music, you can support him, support all musicians. You should be supporting independent musicians. I don't know, what do you think? Like twice a week, 3 times a week, 7 times a month, 48 times a year? I don't know, take your pick, find your favorite musicians and just go to their Bandcamp page and buy stuff. I guarantee you that will put a smile on your favorite musician's face. I know because I am one of them. I run the No Age Bandcamp page, and whenever an order comes in, I go, "Hoo!" or some sound like that. That sounded more like Mario. It's a me. I gotta find a T-shirt in the garage and put it in an envelope and mail it to Poughkeepsie. It's a fascinating thing to do. Anybody who's curious, please go support your favorite musicians, and anybody who likes this podcast, and go tell your friends that you like this podcast and let them know. Maybe they'll like it too. That's the best way for more listeners to find this podcast. Word of mouth works. Let everybody know. If you're part of the Chokebore army, please share this link and everything else with the other fans. Let them know that we're here, the part of the AmRep army, whatever army you subscribe to. Share the information. Let everybody know that Hyphenate has fun guests and insane host who has too much fun interviewing his heroes. So I appreciate it, and I will see you on Monday, unless I oversleep over the weekend, and then it'll be a little bit later Monday. Maybe that happened. Maybe that happened last week, and it's all right. All right. See you then. Bye.
And so I called this dude in the middle of nowhere on some payphone, and I'm like, "Hey, Greg," or whatever his name was. I got my grandma's ashes with me, and it was Marlyn Manson.